Early bird gathers no moss. Rolling stone catches the worm, right?
What are you doing? Truman!
Where shall we go? Where shall we go?
Truman, where are we going?
We know. Guess I'm being spontaneous. Somebody help me! I'm being spontaneous! Forget Fiji. And we will drive to Fiji, can we? What about Atlantic City?
Page again.
That's right, I do.
So why would you want to go there?
Because I never have. That's why people go places, isn't it?
Truman, I think I'm going to throw up.
Me too! Locked at every turn. Beautifully synchronized, don't you agree?
You're blaming me for the traffic?
Should I?
Truman, let's go home.
You're right. We could be stuck here for hours. We could be like this all the way to Atlantic City. Let's go back. I'm sorry. I don't know what got into me.
Can you please slow down?
Yes, I can.
No.
I changed my mind. What's New Orleans like this time of year? Party roll! Look, Farrell. The city road.
No cars. It's magic. You let me out. You're not right in the head. You want to destroy yourself? Do it on your own.
I think I'd like a little company. Okay.
No, everybody else besides Truman is an actor or an actress.
The lady knows, the guy didn't know.
The lady knows, Truman doesn't know. But he's starting to figure it out. And that was like the first part of him figuring out that no matter what, like something's keeping him there. So there's a part later on in the movie where he sort of knows now that something is going on around him that he doesn't know about, and that he's...
Just listen, he might answer your question.
Yeah, there's something going on around him that he doesn't know about. So later on in the movie, he you know how people do in ads and in movies, how like they face the camera and they advertise a product?
Yeah.
So that's what they do in this one part of the movie when his wife offers him a cup of coffee, and like you know how like they list all like the details about the coffee, and he like and she's not talking to him, she's talking to a hidden camera. And then he figures out that there's people watching him, and he sort of like feels really isolated. And he sort of and then after that, he's sort of being like on his own. Like nobody else understands him because everybody else is either an actress or an actor or a or an extra. And we can feel that sometimes like that in our faith. Like isolation. And there's a scripture of Proverbs chapter 18, verse 1. And it says, "Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment." And that was what's happening in the scene when he started driving his car around like crazy, doesn't really care what's going on, knowing that whatever happens, something will block him. And at the end of the movie, he figures it out, and then he sees how far he drives his car to like the beach, and he gets a boat, and he goes all the way to the end, and then at the end he says, and then the creator of the show speaks over to him like sort of like God, and he never experienced that. Like there's a ginormous voice booming from like the sun, like speaking to him and saying, "This is all you've ever known. This is all you will ever care about. The real world isn't like this at all." And then Truman realizes that he would rather be like free than to be isolated like that. And isolation, that like what Truman experiences in that movie, can happen a lot in like our daily lives, especially when like after Lakeview or after we go on like a trip or after like a really awesome lesson taught by Matthew. Sort of like we're really like pumped up to share this with others. But it's kind of hard when you're trying to like share that into your daily life, and you're trying to incorporate your like church life into your daily life, and you're trying to like invite people to church. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can do that, like prayer and stuff. What are some other ways that we can like sort of help others understand God, or basically help other people know God?
You just show them through your actions. You just live Christ-like, and then they'll just see it and they're like, "Why do you like that?" And they're like, "Because I believe in it."
Yes.
Did you say that already?
No. That's actually really well put. But yeah, through your actions is a really good one. And inviting people to church and things like that, it sort of helps you know that, whenever you're like trying to act out in your day, like, you have like, you're at school, so you're supposed to like focus on school, and you're at church, you're supposed to focus on God, and then when you go back to school, you're sort of in that God mood, like when you're like praying before each test, kind of like what I do. And then you sort of feel like you're like the only one doing it. And it happens a lot. But it's whenever you sort of like believe in God strongly, but you feel like you're the only one doing it. And there's a lot of things that happen like this, and there's a lot of ways this can happen, and it happens in our daily lives a lot. And sometimes isolation, because of our faith, sort of makes us drift apart from God. And that can be pretty bad. That's why you should like invite people to church. And there's a lot of ways that you can sort of implement your church life into your regular life. And that's and you can like invite people to church, prayer, and things. And isolation, especially in the Truman Show, it says we should never be isolated because and then it says you never know what's going on inside our head in the last scene. And sort of the creator of the show talks to him and says, this isolation you're feeling, it can all be changed. Because the creator of the show, he dictates what's going to happen to Truman. He's the one that's keeping him on the island. And that's sort of, and when it relates to our real life, there is no creator of the show. Like, the Truman Show is based off of the Truman theory. But the only thing that's keeping us isolated if we go into the real life, the real world, is us. And how, we feel that way. I'm sorry. But, yeah, what are some ways, I don't know if this is just me, but has anybody else felt like this? You sort of feel isolated and like by yourself, like you want to share God, but you don't know how to. And there's a lot of things like you can't just jump onto a table and say, let's pray to God. And you can't really do that.
Do you think it's easy to practice your faith, to be a follower when you feel alone?
No.
When you feel like you're the only one doing it? Guys, is it easier to practice your faith alone or with other people that believe? Vanessa, what do you think? Since you're talking, you must have an answer.
I'm just saying that I pray whenever I'm at, people that have other religions. I don't know.
Okay. So it can be really difficult when you feel all alone, right?
Yeah.
When you feel like everyone else is doing something else. And it can even be so difficult that that instead of professing your faith or following your faith, that you want to do what everyone else is doing, so you don't feel alone.
Right.
And it can pull us away from, right?
Yeah. And that's why it's sort of hard and easy to drift apart from your faith than when you're by yourself. Then it's not as easy when you're with a group of people.
Think about a time, think if you've ever been to, like Huck said, church camp or UM Army or any kind of trip with the church. It's easy to, get up in the morning and do worship, and we do a lunch devotional, and we do an evening worship. That's 3 worships a day, where most of us are worshiping like that one time a week, maybe twice a week. But it's easier because you know that everybody in the room has the same belief and the same faith as you, right? But if you were to do that at school, like see at the pole, it's hard to invite people to see at the pole because you're not sure how they'll react to that.
Yeah. And sort of like that fear of other people not accepting Christianity. Like, somebody might be another religion. It's sort of hard and sort of scary just to like invite them and then have the feeling like, oh, you don't believe in God. Okay. But here's the thing. If they're curious about God and they want to learn about God, it's sort of our job to teach them about God. And sort of, if they're alone and if they're like not believing in God and they're like sort of by themselves, sometimes they can feel like everybody else believes in God and they don't. And they doesn't even learn about it. And that's why sometimes we in our daily lives need to help people understand God.
Or we can be there to support other believers so that they don't wind up feeling alone, because it's so much harder to be that missionary for God, to share your faith through your actions, through anything, if you feel all alone. But if you see other people doing it and you support them and you can help them through your actions or through your words or through prayer, through Bible study, through see you at the pole, through inviting people to church. If you can do those things, you can build that community so people don't have to feel alone. So they don't have to feel like Truman, where everybody else is looking at them and going, you don't fit.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
And that brings up a great point. So would you rather like go onto a roller coaster that's nobody else has been on and it's brand new and you be the first one doing it? Or would you rather go on another one that like you see everybody doing it? And like you see everybody riding in and coming out like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun.
Neither. I don't like roller coasters.
It can apply to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, just because billions haven't tried it, it's obviously faster. So if it's safe, I'll ride it.
Yeah. A or B, not both.
Yeah. Because I had like this situation because it was with me with the Iron Shark. My parent was like, my mom was like, all right, we're gonna go to Pleasure Fair really early. We're gonna beat all the tourists. We're gonna be awesome. And then we were the first ones on the Iron Shark, and that was my first time riding the Iron Shark. I don't know if it's gonna jump off and go into the Gulf of Mexico. I was really scared. But then, so my mom was like, okay, how about we ride the Kitty Frog one? And I'm like, okay, let's do that. So we rode like the frog one that goes up and down, and then after we saw like a bunch of other people doing the Iron Shark, and then it sort of feels like you're able to do it because you see all these other people doing it, and you see all these other people like having fun with it, and also having like the new experience.
Nobody convinced me to get on the Iron Shark. I got on by myself. And I ended up crying throughout the whole entire ride for my friend. That was it. Just so happy to be
So I have a question. So what if you are in here and it's Sunday night or Wednesday night, whichever night you come on, and you see a new person walk into the room?
You go greet them and say, social anxiety kicks in.
Okay, so Alexa says you go and greet them. Zan says social anxiety, I get that. But how does that person feel? Do they feel isolated? Yes. So what should we do as Christians? And I've been trying to help y'all get through, because it's awkward for you guys too, I know. But what should we do as Christians to that new person?
Invite them in.
Invite them in, greet them. Not just invite them in and say hi. Ask them to play a game with you. Ask them to play cards, whatever. So they're not sitting at a table by themselves. That's
a really good point. Talking about isolation, guys. They just launched a new contemporary. It's actually not considered contemporary. It's modern worship now. The Bridge. They just launched last week a whole new service at 11 o'clock. But listen, I don't need a response right now. One of the big things that they covered, and they went for several months, where they weren't having regular worship. They were having meetings and they were discussing how to rebuild this from the ground up. One of the things they talked about, really, the whole idea of the name, the bridge, the bridging of church into the world, is they didn't feel like they were doing a good enough job greeting people, inviting people in. They would say, well, these people would come and visit once or twice, but they still felt isolated. They didn't feel welcome. So sometimes those people wouldn't come back. And so they've made a really big point to have lots of extra greeters and to specifically interact with people when they come and engage with those people and talk to them about coming back and how happy we are that you're here, and let's get your information. And here, you know what? You're new, you don't know your way around. This is Bob. Bob's going to show you whatever you need to know. He's going to give you direction.
Right.
So these people come in, they feel welcome, as opposed to feeling like an outsider, still feeling isolated.
Yeah, and the main point I'm trying to make is, like, whenever you're feeling isolated because of your faith, you should never feel like you're the only one doing it. You should never feel like you're the only one that's believing in God and trying to bring it into school. Because Christianity is a thing that everybody can do. Everybody can get into religion. It's not like you need to pay a certain amount of money or you need to look a certain way. No, it's anybody. We accept and everybody. So
1/3 of the world's population is Christian. So
yeah, exactly. So isolation because of your faith should never happen. Just think that in any way that there's always somebody out there, or there's always a group of people that also feel the same way, and then you can help people like that. You can say, hey, you can invite them to church if they don't come to your church, or if they're trying to find out God. Then you don't feel that way. And in the last part of the Truman Show, I don't know if I'm spoiling this, but it's a really famous scene. Okay. But there's a part where the creator says, you step out that door, you're never coming back, and you'll never experience this cool world again, this amazing world again, like the little town, the little movie set he was raised and born in. And Truman says, the most famous movie quote a lot, it says, if I don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And then he walks out the door and takes a bow. And then the entire world goes nuts, and then the Truman Show is canceled, but then Truman then becomes a real-life celebrity. And that's the end of the film. And then he joins society as a regular person, rather than just being in the movie set and being alone, and sort of kind of makes him a little cuckoo.
A little?
Yeah. Yes. Is a mock cuckoo.
Oh, yeah.
Well, awesome job, Huck. Thank you so much. Everybody give Huck a round.